everyone, and welcome to 2MB Studios. I'm your host for the night, Misinformation, here on a show called That Sounds Right, where it doesn't matter who has the right answer, it only matters who sounds like they do. With me here, as always, is my co-host, Will Actually. Will, how are you doing tonight?
Will Actually here, and I'm doing wonderfully. I'm so excited for today's show. It's a new year and a new year for facts and truth.
Wow, Will, that's so optimistic of you. You know I love that about you. It is a new year, but I got to tell you, it's the same old game here on That Sounds Right.
Well, sometimes you can actually get some right answers, and those are the times that I'm counting on misinformation.
You know, I really try, Will. I really do.
I believe you.
I'm going to try tonight, as always, to find who has the right answer and give points for the answer I think sounds the most right. We have 3 contestants in the studio. We have Hannah. Hannah, hello and welcome.
Hello.
Hi, Hannah. So excited to have you on the show tonight.
Thank you for having me, Kaylee.
We have Mike. Oh, thank you very much for calling me by my true name on That Sounds Right. We have Mike here in the studio. Mike, hello. Wow. Oh, Mike, you're muted. You got smart points for glasses, but we can't hear you.
I was just testing to make sure your equipment was working. Misinformation, it's an honor to be here. Hanabi, good to see you as well.
Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you for being here. Like I said, glasses looking very sophisticated. So glad you put those on for the show. And we have Julie as well. Julie, hi.
Hello.
So glad to have you on this show.
Great to be had.
I'm really excited for these 3 contestants. We're going to have such a fun time tonight, and I hope we're going to learn something new along the way. Let's dive in, shall we? Hannah, Mike, and Julie. Our first question is, what celebrity was mayor of a Midwestern city before they became famous? What was the city? So we're looking for what celebrity was mayor and what city was this where they were the mayor. Now, audience members, if you've tuned in before, you know that one of these contestants has the correct answer, but I have no idea which one. Hannah, we're going to start with you. What's your answer? What was the celebrity and what city?
Sure. Absolutely. The celebrity is, of course, one of my esteemed favorites, Mr. Jerry Springer. He was the mayor of a small Midwestern city, not too small, and I believe the city is Cincinnati. He was a Democratic candidate. He was on the Congress for some, I'm sorry, not the Congress. He was on the city council for some period of time in the 70s before he was officially elected. I believe in the year, I want to say like 1978 through 1981. And I think that something about his reputation made it so that he was not reelected.
Thank you so much, Hannah. Now, I know that Hannah has seen the show before because you already know how to win me over. That answer had it all. It had details. It had dates. It had a real off-the-cuff feel to it, making me think that you've memorized this information. Mike, I'm going to come to you next. What's your answer? What was the celebrity? What was the city?
Well, misinformation, we have to go back a little farther in time than we initially intended because the celebrity was none other than Mr. Rhett Butler, a.k.a. Clark Gable, one of the most famous actors of all time. And he became the mayor of a small city known as Davenport, Iowa. And the year was 1927. He became the mayor through a freak accident where he filled out his ballot with his own name as a joke, put it into the ballot box. However, all the other ballots were destroyed by a fire, except for his, which fell out of the box because it was transferred from the city hall to the other mayor's office, which were not in the same building. Therefore, he won the election by mistake.
Wow. That's an incredible story. I'm very impressed, Mike, by that answer. And I can't wait to hear more from you tonight. Julie, I'm going to come to your answer now. What celebrity, what was the city?
Yeah, it was Sonny Bono, and it was Valparaiso, Indiana. But he wasn't Sonny Bono at the time. He was Sonny Bonarusso, which was his given Italian name before he shortened it to Bono.
Sonny Bonarusso. I see. Incredible. Now, audience members, I know that it's difficult to tell, but two of these contestants are actually just making up these answers on the spot. They have not heard this question before, and they're just making up something as it comes to them, which is very impressive because all three of these answers, I have to say, sound right. We're off to a strong start. I can tell that the three of you are, in fact, geniuses, which is why I invited you on this show tonight. Now, I am not getting much help from the audience. Normally, I turn to audience comments. Other Dave Thomas says, Clark Gable is notoriously full of himself. That seems to support Mike's story. Now, Mike, I have to come to you with a follow-up question because it seems that if there was a fire that burned up the ballots, wouldn't the city want to know how those people voted? Wouldn't they, perchance, collect votes again?
You would think so, but remember, it was during the 1920s at a time where travel was much more difficult. The citizens of Davenport, Iowa, didn't live in the city center like we do in sort of a Cambridge or a Boston. No, they lived in the outskirts of the town. So to come back in and vote again would take them nearly a day. And frankly, the city needed a mayor immediately. They didn't want to waste people's time.
Wow. You know, that's a great point. Clearly, they needed a mayor to make these big decisions. Mm-hmm. What a difficult time in Davenport's history. I'm very convinced by Mike's story, and Mike seems to be getting some support from the audience. I'm very swayed by audience opinion, so please chime in. Hannah, I'm sorry, you look so distressed.
I am a little distressed, and it's because, and I, not to rain on Mike's parade. It's a pretty commonly known thing that Cincinnati is the little Hollywood of the Midwest. That's how it's known by everyone.
That's how I know it.
That's how you know it. That's how we all know it. And when you were running for political office, people are chanting your name. People are at your rallies, Jerry. Or does that sound familiar to you?
It does.
Does that sound like a career move that was somewhat? It was a smooth. It's a straight line from one thing to the next. And I mean that's math and geography.
Wow. Oh, Hannah, I have to be honest. You were winning me over, but in the comments, Rachel says, I'm becoming less convinced by Hannah. On the other hand, other Dave Thomas says, I'm voting for Hannah. I'm very conflicted, but I'm going to go with my first impulse. And I'm going to give 5 points to Mike for the first answer. That to me sounds right. I can't get over that fire story. And I really have to give points for that.
Well, actually here, the correct answer is Jerry, Cincinnati, Ohio. Wow. He was mayor until 1981. And I believe there's something with like sex workers that was put into the newspaper, and that's what ruined his career.
That ruined his political career.
But created a new career as the man we know and love.
Wow. Hannah, I'm so sorry I doubted you. You get no points at all for the correct answer. Mike will retain his 5 points for an answer that sounded right. I'm so sorry, Will. That's how the game goes. I will give 5 points to any audience member who commented that they were voting for Hannah's because that was the correct answer. Good job, audience. We're going to move on now to question 2 of round 1. Question 2 is, what is a phantom bump? And where would you see it? Once again, that question is, what is a phantom bump and where would you see it? Mike, I'm coming to you first for your answer.
Thank you, Misinformation. Well, a phantom bump, that is when a professional wrestler or a referee fall to the ground as if they've been hit, but they were clearly not, and there was nothing around them. You would see that usually inside the squared circle or a pro wrestling ring at a wrestling match.
Wrestling. That answer makes sense to me. They would call that a phantom bump. Julie, I'm going to come to you for your answer next.
Yeah, a phantom bump is actually not something that you see. It's something that you don't feel. So they talk about it a lot with like elementary schoolers and middle schoolers. And so it's when you like try and do the like bump it and they miss, but you're not going to tell a child that they missed the bump. So you just go with it anyway. And you're like, yeah, we did it. It's a phantom bump.
I see. It's a way to encourage children with poor hand-eye coordination.
Yeah, it's like a participation trophy for physical. I want to say physical contact, but I don't want to be like.
I understand perfectly. Julie, that's a great answer. Thank you so much. Hannah, what have you got for me? What's a phantom bump?
Well, a phantom bump is pretty obviously the lump specifically that is in your thigh, which would have been your vestibular unborn twin. They call it a phantom bump because the spirit of the twin is something that they say stays with you, even if the twin only ultimately resides in that lump on your leg. Not much more to it than that.
Hannah,
it's a very spiritual thing.
Does everybody have one of these phantom bumps, or
No.
only? Oh, I see.
No, specifically people that maybe had a twin that they absorbed very early on, and then it becomes a lump that they can either choose to have removed or carry sort of the spirit phantom bump with them throughout their life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hannah, that's a creepy answer.
But
I buy it.
Yeah.
Now, will I give points for it? That's another question. The only person so far that has support from the audience is Mike, once again, for a wrestling, I guess a non-move in wrestling called the Phantom Bump. But I have to say, I am leaning towards Julie right now because Phantom Bump sounds like something that I could say to a child.
May I ask a follow-up question of Julie?
I encourage you to do so.
Yes, Mike, what's your follow-up question for Julie?
You say that you can't tell the children that that they made a mistake in the phantom bump.
I didn't say you can always tell a child that they make a mistake, but you're not going to tell the child, "Oh, you suck." You're going to say, it's a phantom bump. You're spinning it.
When the child then does achieve an actual bump, how do you backtrack and clarify their mistake?
It's two different things. There's a phantom bump, and then there's a bump. Sort of like there's glasses, and then there's people that put glasses on to look smart.
So then follow up to the follow up. What is it? What then would be a non-phantom bump?
A bump.
So it's just
the phantom is a qualifier to the bump.
Okay.
It's a type of bump. I understand.
I can tell who works with kids.
I mean, no,
Julie, your answer has held up against the scrutiny of the two other contestants. And for that, I am going to award you 5 points for an answer that I think sounds right. That sounds right to me. Phantom bump.
Well, actually, here, Mike was right on that one. It's a wrestling term.
Okay, it is wrestling.
Can Mike get those points for that?
Mike gets no points. I gave points to Julie for an answer that sounded right to me.
That's about a phantom bump for me then.
Oh. Will's disappointed. Once again, I have to say, if I went with the audience, I would have been correct. That's another 5 points to Other Dave Thomas. So far, Other Dave Thomas is winning from the audience for picking all the correct answers. Let's go to question 3. Question 3 is oh boy, here we go. How did Roger Bricot, I assume, the cellist on the Titanic, die in both 1912 and 2000? What? Okay, Roger Bricot is the way that I'm choosing to pronounce this, was the cellist on the Titanic. He died in both 1912 and the year 2000. I'm so interested. Julie, how did this happen?
Okay, first of all, I apologize. I am going to correct your pronunciation since I do know this. It's Roger Bricot. And when his death certificate was mailed after the sinking of the Titanic, his parents never received it. So in 1913, France mobilized for the war. They sought him to fight, declared him a deserter. And then in 2000, the Association Française du Titanic, they were able to get it declared that he had died. But his death was issued in 2000 as well.
Wow. Julie is taking a strong lead with the French words that she just used.
Merci.
Incredibly impressive. That's a way to win me over. Hannah, I'm coming to you next. How did Roger Bricot die in both these years?
First of all, Kate, misinformation. Bonsoir. Secondly, I hate to correct you and then to double back and correct Julie as well. It's actually pronounced Roger Braqueur. And the thing is, he died of what's called a subliminal death, which is when you actually experience something that is so close to death, you die for a moment because he drowned on the Titanic in 1912. And then years later in 2000, when as a survivor, this man lived to be into his early hundreds. He had a nightmare that he was drowning and died for real. So it's sort of, I guess, I never know how to use it because Alanis taught me incorrectly, but I think it might be kind of ironic that he actually didn't die from drowning, but he died from a nightmare about drowning in what they called a subliminal death.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that is an incredible answer, Hannah. You're really putting your knowledge to good use here.
So he was like 120 when he died.
Yes. Yep.
Yes, he was.
Just about 119.
He was 119 years old, which is very potentially true. Yeah. Mike, third answer from you. What is your answer?
Well, I first of all, I hate to step back and correct you misinformation, and I hate to then double back and correct Hannah and triple back and correct Julie as if I am mansplaining, which I assure you I'm not.
Of course.
But the pronunciation of his name is actually Roger Brycox. His name is Roger Brycox. Roger Brycox is actually the person that the film Titanic was based on, but they didn't want to make it the cellist because that would be too obvious. So they created Jack Dawson. Roger Brycox conned his way onto the Titanic by posing as a cellist and taught himself to play whilst on the voyage. When the ship did in fact crash, he grabbed a steerage passenger, swapped clothes with him, and got onto a lifeboat. So therefore, Roger Brycox did die on the Titanic, but then lived until the year 2000, and then he died again, this time for real.
Wow. That's an incredible story. I have to be honest, we have three terrific answers here, all very different, all very possible. I have no idea how to say this person's name, and I'm afraid of leaning one way or the other. Roger Brycox is what Mike said, which makes sense to me. Hannah's was too difficult. I'm not going to attempt it. And Julie's, I think, was Roger Brousseau. Was that?
Brissou.
Okay.
I said Roger Braqueur, but because we're all agreeing to disagree, misinformation, maybe we just go with RB if everyone can at least.
RB.
Is that?
I would offer also, because I don't want Mike to win, Hannah's pronunciation is a correct regional French dialect from the Provence region.
Oh.
Well, oui, c'est vrai.
Hannah,
so both of us are correct, mostly me.
Maybe I'm willing to compromise if, you have your pronunciation, you have yours, I have the correct one. Perhaps if we just similar to calling him RB, just call him Arby's. Since we all have different ways of saying his name, let's just call him Arby's.
I feel like that's Mike's way of saying he's got beef, but
no beef, nay beef, nay beef, nay beef, nay beef.
Okay, well,
listen.
Arby's.
Don't boo me.
Julie and Hannah have both demonstrated their knowledge by doing a terrific French accent. Mike, I'm going to have to ask you do the same to try and convince me of your answer. This person is potentially French, which means you should be able to give your answer with a French accent.
Certainement. Bonjour, je m'appelle Roger Brycox.
Wow.
Étouffé?
Mike, that was beautiful. I've gone against the audience on the past two questions. I'm so impressed by Mike's accent, but the audience seems to be going with Julie, and I have to go with the audience this time because they've been correct the past 2 answers. So I'm going to give 5 points to Julie. I just rang the bell. That means Julie is getting 5 points, taking a lead in the first round.
Whoa, this honestly became a question within a question, and it's super exciting. And I'm also excited that Julie is right.
Yes, first correct answer of the night, getting points. Will, you must be thrilled.
Oh, I'm very thrilled. It's about time.
Incredible. Now, that is the end of our first round. Our points at the moment, we have Hannah, you're bringing up the rear here. You have no points so far, but it's early on in the game. We have Mike with 5 points and Julie with 10 points, taking away 2 of those answers. So Julie, you're taking a lead right off the bat. I want to come to you and just ask how you're feeling so far. Are you feeling confident, or do you worry you're peaking too soon?
I would never feel this confident this early. I'm still riddled with anxiety about everything, but I do feel good because I feel passionate about the information, and I'm excited to share mine, as well as answer some other questions.
Fantastic. Julie, do you want to share anything with the audience before we dive into round 2?
About like my life and things I do. Yeah. I have an Instagram called bookstore_gal, and I make book recommendations because I love nerdy things. And I also have a podcast called Historical Shade, in which we talk about crappy people in history. Unfortunately, there are a lot.
Very true. Very true.
Julie, right now. Hannah, I love you.
Julie, you've just given me another reason to be convinced by your answers too. Clearly, Julie knows a lot about history from her podcast. This is an impressive round of That Sounds Right. We're going to dive into the second round of this round of That Sounds Right. And the first question of the second round of this episode is, what is castoreum? What are 2 to 3 ways it is used? Okay. What is castoreum? What are 2 to 3 ways it's used? Hannah, what is castoreum? Please tell me. I'm dying to know.
Sure. Did somebody say beaver anus? Castoreum is an orange bitter liquid that comes from the anal glands of a beaver. And it is used several ways. One, to make synthetic raspberry flavoring in some of our favorite foods.
No.
It has also been used in perfumes as well as in cigarettes. So that's it.
Wow, Hannah, that is one heck of an answer. I did not expect to hear you say beaver anus just now, and I'm really intrigued by your answer. You also have 2MB Studios just commented with your quote, did someone say beaver anus, which means it may or may not get turned into merch. So we'll see. Julie, I'm coming to you next. What is castoreum?
Yeah, it's a natural sweet thickening agent. So it's the equivalent is sort of like corn syrup. But castoreum is a solid thickening agent like castor sugar. So it's obviously used in baking. It is, gluten-free, it's vegan, it's a good agent in that terms, but It's also used in, it's not the Play-Doh, what's that like slimy stuff called?
Oobleck.
Yes, that too.
Fantastic.
And that's why Play-Doh and all those things are edible.
Oh, because it's an edible ingredient. It's really in Play-Doh?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And the kinetic sand stuff, which is way better than Play-Doh, by the way.
Kinetic sand, like from that store in the mall.
Yeah, the weird Sharper Image store.
Yes. Thank you, Julie. Mike, what is your answer? What is castoreum?
Glasses.
We must go inside the human brain to understand castoreum, for it is a chemical secreted by the brain in the area of sleep in betwixt deep sleep and REM sleep. Those are actually 2 very different types of sleep. Castoreum is created by the brain, and it is created by creating a very intense feeling of emotional fear and dread in between those 2 sleep cycles. So it has a very small window of actually being created. However, it has 2 main uses. The first use is therapeutic, where if someone is trying to deal with some trauma, they are brought to that state in between REM sleep and deep sleep and freaked out so that their brain will create castoreum, which will then allow them to face the trauma. It is also used in militaristic areas. In fact, it was discovered in North Korea. Kim Jong-il, the late Kim Jong-il, was able to get his soldiers to create castoreum, and then they would follow him with more of a specific desire, because it was almost a drug-induced feeling, because castoreum creates a feeling of incredible relaxation and trust.
Wow.
Yeah.
Once again, 3 incredibly different answers. Just to recap really quickly.
And it's also a lyric in a Pearl Jam song.
Oh my God, that's an excellent detail. I'm really glad you added that.
Yes.
So we have beaver anus, we have a baking ingredient, and a chemical created by the human brain. Hannah, you seem like you want to add something.
Yeah, I actually am about to say something that might surprise you, which is I do agree with part of what Mike said. It is secreted, not from a brain, but from the anal glands of a beaver.
I really love that we're trying to find agreement here.
Yeah.
Is the anus not the brain of certain creatures?
One could argue. I would say on the beaver specifically, no. The anus and the brain are 2 very different things.
Opposite ends.
Opposite ends. The other thing that I would add, just to kind of further my point, is that it's something that was it was a substance that was used a while ago in the last few decades. I don't know how frequently it's getting used currently. There's some debate about if it's used at all anymore.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. This is a tough choice because Hannah has audience support. Julie would know about a baking ingredient, as
I also have audience support. I'm just saying.
Julie also has audience support. And Mike used the word betwixt. So everyone really is giving me reasons to give them points. I'm going to give 5 points to Hannah. Because you know what, Hannah, your answer sounds right to me. And this is the kind of weird information that I typically learn on this show. So I'm going to give you 5 points for the beaver anus thing.
And you'd be correct. It's beaver anus.
Okay, great. I was talking myself out of it a little bit.
I'm glad you didn't. 2 in a row.
You will. 2 in a row. Next question is, what is Buridan's ass? Well, I'm going to ask that again. Let's try it with a different pronunciation this time. What is Buridan's ass? What is it, Mike? Mike, what is this thing?
Quite simply, Buridan's ass is a constellation that was discovered by Swedish astrologists about 16 years ago, but it only appears every 4 to 5 years because of the distance of the stars. They are in a pulsing quasar situation. Therefore, they are not always seen.
Pulsing quasar. That's a really impressive phrase. Will, are you looking to add something?
Oh, I didn't realize I was on.
Will, always happy to have you. Come back anytime. We have Julie. What is your answer? Buridan's ass.
So I know this historically, not because of history, but because I, in my relationship history, dated a philosophy major, which I do not recommend. But Buridan's ass it's like an illustration of a paradox in the conception of free will. So the idea is a donkey is placed equidistant from water and a bale of hay. And the donkey is both thirsty and hungry. And so it assumes the donkey will go to whichever is closer, but because they're equidistant, it doesn't make a decision and it just dies of hunger and thirst.
Because it can't decide if it wants the... Okay. Ass also means donkey. I understand. Julie, a terrific answer.
Mm-hmm.
A word that means 2 things. Thank you. And Hannah, what is your answer? What is Buridan's ass?
Yeah, again, I would love to take the opportunity to agree with part of what Julie said here, which is that it is a donkey in the sense Buridan's ass is speaking about a donkey, and that's about where it ends for me because it actually relates to an old fable about a donkey.
A fable.
Yeah, it's a fable. It's a fable about a man walking. It was a children's fable before we weren't really supposed to say ass. And I should know this is actually true. I play the donkey in the Christmas play at my church every year.
So you have an expert opinion here.
I do have an expert opinion. But this is a fable about sort of walking around the donkey and how Buridan gets tired. And notice how it's Buridan, like a burden. And he's tired of walking the donkey place to place to place. And the donkey is the one carrying everything for him. And it's a story about being grateful. And it's used to teach children about the importance of A, being grateful, and B, caring for animals. So yes, Buridan's ass, one of my favorite fables, actually.
One of your favorite fables.
Yeah.
Hannah, that's a terrific answer. And I have to say, as someone who has played a donkey in your Christmas play,
Yes, every year.
I'm inclined to believe you. We have 3 very different answers. Mike with a constellation.
Yes.
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 It's technically a constellation.
Yes, a constellation that can only be seen every few years because of the, as Kit Tempest commented,
Right.
the pulsing quasar situation, which is the word that astrologists in Sweden have used.
Wow. You know, Mike, the glasses are really convincing me. We have an astronomy answer from Julie, a history answer. We know that Julie is a history buff from your podcast. And Hannah, you were the donkey in the Christmas play. So we have 3 experts here, clearly, because Mike, again, used the term pulsing quasar. So this is a real toss-up.
I know that, Mike and Hannah are very convincing improvisers, and you may not go with my answer, but if you take one thing away from this, I hope it's that you won't always be able to make a decision. And you should, because otherwise you might die of thirst and hunger.
I thought you were going to say it's that I shouldn't date a philosophy major, because I'm definitely
oh my God,
that away.
Never, the worst.
That
Julie,
sounded like a
so
death threat
impassioned.
against misinformation. Sounded like you were threatening her, frankly.
No, I was saying
telling her that she had to choose you because you are the ass in the middle of Hannah and I with your AMY.
and a philosophy major, I would die of lack of philosophy major, and that would be better.
You know what? I don't want to be the Buridan ass in this situation. So I'm going to make a decision, and I am going to give 5 points to Hannah for the children's fable, because I liked the wordplay of not only ass, but also Buridan kind of sounding like, I really liked your answer, Hannah. I liked the way you told that story. I'm going to give you 5 points for an answer that to me sounds right. We also know that donkeys are a fan favorite of fables.
Well, actually here, donkeys are a fan favorite, but for Julie's answer.
Oh,
It was the philosophy all along.
It was the philosophy. Julie, I should have known because you dated a philosophy major.
The worst.
The worst. Next question in round 3.
Sounds like a real Buridan's ass.
He really does sound like a real Buridan's ass. Is it Buridan or Buridan?
Oh, I don't know.
Not sure. You know what? We don't always learn on this show, and that's just fine. We're having fun along the way. The third question in the second round is, besides their colors in quotes, what do ranch dressing and sunscreen have in common? So besides their color, what do ranch dressing and sunscreen have in common? I'm so intrigued to hear. Julie, what do they have in common?
They both contain titanium dioxide. It's what gives the white color. I think colors in parentheses quotes because it's not actually a color. It's like a lack of color.
Titanium dioxide?
Mm-hmm.
That's a great answer. I don't even know what that is. Hannah, what's your answer?
If I was being hilarious, I would say that I would drink tequila out of either bottle at the beach. But since this is serious business, I am going to tell you the truth, which is that as somebody that's eaten a lot of chicken tenders outside, spilled a good deal of ranch on their legs, I know for a fact that ranch dressing and sunscreen both have the SPF sun protecting agent. It's not talked about because you will attract a lot of flies, so it's ill-advised to put ranch on your body. But it does protect. It does have vitamin A and vitamin C, and what is it? Zinc. That it's got the same mesh of components that exist in sunscreen, but it's like digestible, which is insane.
So so let me be clear. We should not put ranch dressing on because it will attract a lot of flies. Can we dip nuggets in sunscreen, or will it not have the same effect?
It's sunscreen, the one sunscreen that besides the taste component, obviously, the one kind of downfall of putting sunscreen on a nugget is it's slippery, rubbery agent. So you can have it, but it's gonna right through.
It's gonna slip right out of your hand before you can eat it.
Well, yes, your hand, and you know what I mean.
Mike, what's your answer?
Well, to harken back to an earlier round question,
let's
Mayor Jerry Springer would have torn open an envelope and read the phrase, "You are the father," to the inventor of sunscreen and ranch dressing, because it is the same person. It was invented by a farmer named Joseph Calabria. Joseph Calabria lived in New Mexico and was a ranch hand. And when he was working out in the field, he ended up creating this substance because the sun would beat down on his neck and his face and get very red. So he started to create these concoctions that he would put on his face and neck. And that actually protected him from the sun. He noticed that he stopped getting burns. However, one day when he was working the carrot and celery crops, there were some carrots and celery that fell down on the ground. He picked them up, and from the residue of what he called at the time the screen of the sun, he didn't call it sunscreen yet. That was actually advertisers years later. He rubbed his neck, picked up a carrot, and bit it without realizing that he still had the substance on his fingers, therefore being the first person to put ranch dressing on a crudité.
What? I'm sorry. I'm
sorry. Is it crudité? That is a very challenging.
No, crudité, I believe is correct. He's a farmer, and the ranch dressing and the sunscreen was the same thing because he was rubbing it on it.
He initially created it. I don't know the exact things he used because honestly, that's a secret that he kept and took to his grave with him. What we have now in sunscreen and ranch dressing are very different than what was originally in them. However, he put it on his neck first, then on his face, then picked up the crudités. It was like, "Oh, I want to eat this. Oh, this sounds good." Picked up, nom nom nom. Wait a minute, that's delicious. And then he realized it had a dual purpose.
Mike, you're winning me over. Julie, what's your question?
Well, it's just, was he a farmer or a ranch hand?
Yeah.
Because in your story, he started as a ranch hand and ended as a farmer. And those are two different jobs. That's not fair.
Two different jobs.
That's fair. I'm so sorry, but I just want to say, for somebody that included so many intense details, not including how somebody ascended from ranch hand to farmer, is just beyond me.
That's
I can include it if you'd like. I mean, it was very simple. He worked as a ranch hand, and in his days as a ranch hand, he showed incredible initiative, specifically with the sunscreen invention. That the farmers who worked the land in addition to him gave him some promotions. They promoted him from ranch hand to assistant farmer, then to farmer, because that's it. It's ranch hand, assistant
now
farmer.
He invented it while he was a ranch hand, which meant he wasn't with the carrots.
Let me ask you this, Julie, and everyone, I've been out in the chat. How many brilliant ideas have been created by lower level employees that managers take credit for? So he did it, and he held on to it until he became a farmer, because he knew that his farmer bosses would probably steal the credit for it.
Mike, you're so right. That is how a lot of things are invented. I love that soapbox that you just got on, Mike, and I love your story. I love everything about it. I love that it has audience support, except for 2MB Studios, which commented Mike ... which could be a good or bad thing. It could be like Mike, or it could be Mike.
I take it as a positive.
I take it as a positive too. I'm going to give Mike 5 points. You held up to scrutiny. That answer was terrific. It's a great story. It's a success story. It's the American dream. And it had the word crudité in it.
Well, actually, here, it's the American dream that is completely falsified. Julie is correct. It's titanium dioxide.
Wow. Titanium dioxide was the right answer. I gotta admit, Julie, that was last on my list. I did not think it was a real thing.
Yeah.
Twice.
Thank you, Will.
Twice now. I hope you've learned a lesson here.
Twice now that you've had the right answer that I haven't chosen you.
Yeah.
Could be true. Could be true, Julie. But I have to say, Mike's story sounded right. And I'm not the only one who thought so. That was the end of the second round. And it is a tied game. Julie, Mike, Hannah, each of you has 10 points. It is totally tied up right now. Clearly, the three of you are very well matched together. Mike, I'm going to come to you next. What is something that you would like to share with the audience now?
I'd like to just share that it's an honor to be on the show. I'm a big fan of your work. And yeah, I'm excited about all the stuff happening on 2MB Studios. And I have a show myself. Is this plug time or is this personal sharing time? Okay.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I'm doing it right. My show, thank you for coming, has improvisers from all across the country, and hopefully we've been international as well. We're going to go international again, coming together and playing together for the first time. They've never met. They don't even talk before the show. They're literally in the green room at separate times, and then they just appear on screen and do a scene together. And that's a lot of fun. I'm very excited about that. And yeah, check out all the shows on 2MB Studios. They're all great.
Thank you so much, Mike. Mike, I love your show. I love the concept. I'm so excited to go into our third round now with these three genius contestants who have given a lot of answers that sound really right. Our first question in our third round is, what food-related tradition is celebrated in conjunction with Christmas holiday festivities in Japan? Okay. So you're in Japan, you're celebrating the Christmas holiday festivities. What food-related tradition is happening? All right, Hannah, I'm coming to you first. What is this food tradition in Japan?
Well, I said the Colonel's here. That's right. It is Kentucky Fried Chicken Day. Yes, KFC Day is celebrated every Christmas season in Japan. It started in the early 70s with a gentleman who was working at Kentucky Fried Chicken, coming up with the party barrel idea to pitch to families wanting to get together around Christmas. It has since blown up and is now a tradition that is celebrated. You have to book out 2 or 3 months in advance to get your Kentucky Fried Chicken. On Christmas, it is celebrated by upwards of 3.6 million people in Japan every year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hannah,
Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC Day.
that's an incredible answer. And I love that it started with such enthusiasm and an accent. We have more accents tonight than ever before on That Sounds Right. And I can see that being a thing, for real. That sounds like a real marketing initiative. Mike, what's your answer? What's the food-related tradition?
Inspired by the traditional meal of the 7 fishes, which is, I believe, an Italian tradition. In Japan, for the Christmas holiday, they actually eat cooked fish as opposed to sushi. Sushi is a traditional Japanese dish. However, during the Christmas season, it is customary to take your typical sushi dishes and cook them. This time, paying homage to the Italian tradition, which came over to Japan in, I believe, the early 1800s.
Wow. Another terrific answer. KFC, cooked fish. All of these answers are sounding right to me. Julie, what is your answer?
Yeah, so the Cherry Blossom Festival that you see in the spring, that actually continues throughout the year. You see the cherry theming in Bath and Body Works products, and you also see the cherry theme in the dessert spread that you get at Christmas in Japan. They're not known for their dessert dishes. They're known for umami. They're known for savory. And so the holidays in Japan is sort of like when you get that opportunity to have the sweet dishes. And so you see different platings of cherry themed desserts. So things like the bao, they're able to turn that into a dessert. There's cherry dumplings. I can't remember the mochi with the paste. There's a version of that as well. So it's all sort of different variations on cherry. And that's sort of like the start of cherry blossom season. celebrating that hue and what it means to the Japanese people.
3 incredible answers. Kentucky Fried Chicken, cherry-themed desserts, fish. You know, audience members, this round is going to move a lot more quickly. So if you have thoughts, I could sure use the help. Get them in quickly. For this question, I'm going to make a gut decision. And my gut is that Hannah came in guns a-blazing with that KFC answer. I'm going to give 5 points to Hannah for that fun fried chicken character, and I have audience support already, so I'm feeling good about the decision I've made about
you should be feeling good. It was Hannah and it was KFC.
Yes, I could tell, Hannah. I could tell you. It sounded right. You sounded
When I'm
right.
excited, I'm excited.
Our next
when I'm
question,
doing the Colonel, I'm doing the Colonel.
When you're doing the Colonel, I know that you're doing the Colonel. Our next question in round 3 is, what does it mean to be like a maggot in bacon? This sounds like this is some sort of phrase, like a maggot in bacon. What does it mean? What does it mean? Mike, I'm coming to you first. What does it mean to be like a maggot in bacon?
Well, misinformation. To be like a maggot in bacon, it comes from the German people, and it simply means to live life with the greatest of ease and to not really work for anything, because maggots love bacon. They do. Bacon is the greatest of all foods, and a maggot likes to feast on things. So imagine a maggot sitting in bacon. It's going to be the happiest it's ever been. So that's my answer.
So it means to kind of be carefree and happy?
Yes, without having to work for it.
Without having to work for it at all. Like a maggot in bacon. I have to say, the idea of just being happy and not having to work for it does not sound German to me. But the phrase itself definitely inspires happiness in some people, I'm sure. Julie, what is your answer? What does it mean to be like a maggot in bacon?
I'm going to answer this with a little bit of an anecdote from growing up in Virginia. Because when my mom wanted to acknowledge you were enjoying yourself doing something she approved of, she would say, "Oh, y'all are like a pig in slop." But if she did not approve of it, all of a sudden it was, "Y'all are like a maggot in bacon." And I think that illustrates my point.
I think it really does. Julie, I somehow know exactly what you mean, which I think is the point of a phrase like that. Hannah, what's your answer?
It means you're trapped. You're trapped. You are a maggot in bacon. Nothing looks familiar. Everything is greasy and hot. And you are trapped in your hot, greasy body and your hot, greasy head. You're a maggot in bacon, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, I love your answer, but that does not sound right to me.
I thought her emotional energy, I was getting convinced, and I know she's wrong.
I love that you have
I'm buying it.
The emotional appeal.
And Julie's accent of her mom, like, "Y'all are like a maggot and bacon." I'm like, it's gracious. Yeah. It was very real and authentic.
I am not from my past relationships or my childhood. So
you know what? Every answer so far that has included an accent has been correct. I'm gonna go with Julie. 5 points to Julie for an answer with an accent. It sounded right. I'm seeking patterns tonight.
Well, actually, here, unfortunately, that is not right. Mike was right on the money with ease and comfort and luxury.
Ease, comfort, and luxury, like a
maggot in bacon.
Wow. Everyone was so convincing that round. We have one more question in round 3, and it is, please describe. Okay, here we go. Please describe arachibutyrophobia. One more time for some reason. Please describe arachibutyrophobia. Please describe what that is. It's at the bottom of your screen. Potentially, maybe you say that word as well in your answer. Julie, what is your answer?
I'm sorry. it is the fear of spiders and insects simultaneously. And I experienced that. I'm so sorry. That's what it is.
Wow. Julie has a personal connection. That's a strong answer. Hannah, what's your answer? What is this?
Arachbutyrophobia is a spider's fear of itself. In every sense, which means if a spider catches its reflection in the mirror, it's afraid. If a spider remembers how its mother got smushed when it was an egg.
Hannah, is this used metaphorically or it's always literal spiders?
No, in every sense, literally and metaphorically.
In every sense.
Yeah. It's a really blanket term. Arachbutyrophobia.
That's the word.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, what is this?
Arachbutyrophobia is not the fear of peanut butter as an object per se, but like the situation of it sticking to the roof of your mouth. It's rooted more in a generalized phobia of choking or a pseudodesophagia or one of sticky textures, but it also may occur alone by itself.
Oh my gosh, Mike.
What does that have to do with spiders? Oh.
Absolutely
Nothing.
It doesn't have to do with spiders at all.
Of saying it from now on.
Arachbutyrophobia?
Oh.
Sorry.
The S word.
I'm so
Or the
sorry.
I word, which no one has mentioned yet.
Except for you, Julie. You mentioned it.
Yeah, and you saw how well that turned out for me.
Gosh.
Listen, Mike used some really big words in that answer. I have to give it. I'm so sorry, Julie. I know this has already been so traumatic for you, but I'm giving 5 points to Mike for, I don't even remember what words you used, but I found it very convincing. You sounded very scientific or whatever area
Pseudodesophagia.
is.
Would you believe that Mike is correct?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I was nervous about that one. I've gotten so many right tonight. Wow. You all are absolute geniuses. And you know what? You're so equally matched with each other in this competition that it is a tied game at the end of round 3. This has actually never happened before on That Sounds Right, if I'm correct. We have an absolutely tied game, 15 points to every single player, and we just have the bonus lightning round left. We have a couple minutes left. We're going to pull up our bonus lightning round questions. This will decide the game. This has never happened before. It is up to the chat. I do not give any points during the bonus lightning round. Only the audience members give points during the bonus lightning round. Here is how it works. If you think someone has a convincing answer, if you think their answer sounds right, just type their name into the chat. I will give them a bonus point. We are getting started with our first bonus lightning round question. You got like 1 second to answer. Julie, are you ready? I'm coming to you first.
Ooh, yeah.
Okay, here we go. What is this, Julie?
Squirrel.
Hannah, what is this?
A squirm.
Mike, what is this?
Rabadger.
Will, what is this actually?
It's a chinchilla.
Stella, next question. What mountain is this, Julie?
Everest.
Hannah, what mountain is this?
The Alp.
Mike, what mountain is this?
The one they sang about in Toto's Africa.
Will, what is this actually?
The Matterhorn.
The Matterhorn. Okay, next question. Who is this, Julie?
Judas Priest.
Hannah, who is this?
Colonel Sanders' younger brother, Paul.
Mike, who is this?
Sam Waterston from Law and Order.
Will, who is this actually?
Dr. Seuss.
Dr. Seuss, people. Dr. Seuss. Next question. What is this, Julie?
Honia plant.
Mike, Hannah, what is this?
A dried out peacock.
Mike, what is this?
Floral rock penis.
Will, what is this actually?
It's called a corpse flower.
Corpse flower, people. Next question. Julie, what is this?
Mike.
Hannah, what is this?
Mike.
Mike, what is this?
That's me.
Will, what is this actually?
It's a portrait of the Dutch painter Hieronymus Bosch, or Bosch, rather.
Hieronymus Bosch. Thank
Hieronymus
you.
Bosch.
Gosh. We have last question, last lightning round question. Julie, what is this?
Tails.
Hannah, what is this?
It's the honeycomb monster.
Mike, what is this?
The thing that makes you eat juice drink.
Makes you eat juice drink. Well, what is this actually?
It's the honeycomb monster.
It's the honeycomb monster? It's not the monster that makes you eat juice drink?
No juice drink for that monster.
All right, Hannah, I'm coming to you for a quick check-in while I add up these points. What have you got to tell everybody?
Oh man, well, I am enjoying life in South Boston. I love crystals, and yesterday I went through and I looked at them and I figured out what they're all for. And I also have an Instagram where you can follow me. It's at hannahbear.b. And if I have anything coming up, or when I do have stuff coming up, I post it all there. So it's great if you can follow me. And if you don't want to, I understand why.
I'm following you right now.
Some camaraderie right there.
Camaraderie.
All right.
Sport game.
Thank you so much, Hannah. And thank you, Julie and Mike and Hannah, for being here. Will, actually, thank you as always.
My pleasure.
I have our winner. Julie, I'm so sorry. You are coming in third place tonight. Mike, you are coming in a close second. Close to Julie, actually, not close to the winner. You are beating Julie by just 1 point. Hannah, in a landslide of bonus points, you have won tonight. You are taking it all home. You are walking away tonight with a degree, a diploma from 2MB University, you scholar. All three of you, fantastic job. Thank you so much, audience members, for joining us. We could not do it without you, especially tonight. You decided our winner, and we will see you next week on That Sounds Right.
Bye.
Bang 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 bang.